Welcome to another episode of the Chris Rod Max Show. Every week, on every Monday, we bring you the latest news, the latest developments on AI and what that brings, what that means for you, for your company, for your organization. As it is with every week, I'm joined by Chris, my co-host. Hello, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
And this week, we have a special guest, Tony Dos Santos. Hi, Tony.
Hi, welcome. Thanks a lot for having me.
I'm very glad that you're here with us today, Tony. And before we get started with our episode today, I wanted to ask you pretty much a little bit about you. So you work on AI, you're building AI products. Maybe you can give us like a quick intro of who is Tony Dos Santos.
Sure. Well, I'm a B2B product growth consultant. I've been working in B2B and product for several years now, first in big corporations like French banks, and then in startups like a French startup called Lamlist. And I launched my own SaaS a year ago, which is a social listening tool for B2B companies to do lead generation. And we have a lot of AI in it because we filter a lot of social mentions through AI to give relevant leads to our clients. And I've been working on AI for several years. I passed a degree in data science a few years ago before ChatGPT and all that stuff. And I work with AI daily, and I launched a newsletter and a community about AI for product teams 6 months ago, where we have like almost 2,000 subscribers for now, which means that it's a topic that interests a lot of people. And I do teaching and coaching for startups in France mostly and in the US to help them get acquainted with AI and to learn more how to use AI in their daily tasks, which is, although they're startups, there's still a lot of startups that still have fantasies or don't know how to use AI. So my work is to help them get acquainted and make the best of it.
Wow. So we see that you keep yourself busy and you're like doing a lot of things and so on. And it's all very interesting on this intersection of AI, business, growth, new initiatives. And this brings us really to the topic of our week, right? So we want to discuss this week about Snapchat, Snap Inc. So for anyone who doesn't know what is Snap Inc., Snapchat, maybe we can start with that. So Chris, according to you, what is Snapchat?
Well, it's this yellow ghost, isn't it? The yellow ghost where younger folks use the app to basically send nude pics and stupid pics and have them vanish after a couple of seconds, which I think is how actually Snapchat started. And then I think they dropped chat out of the name. And from what I know and from what we're going to talk about, they have quite evolved now to really embrace social, to embrace AI. And yeah, really happy to explore this a bit further.
Yes, absolutely. So this is something where before we started our recording, we were just a little bit talking. So who is a Snapchat or Snap user? And you, Chris, you were saying you install it, but never really use it. Same case for me. But Tony, you were saying that, so you actually use it. And maybe you can tell us why we see that you were using it, why Snapchat, why not something else? So what was it that you found relevant or interesting back then?
Yeah, so it was like 10 years ago, so it changed a lot since then. But back then, I remember it was because of that, what Chris was saying, that photo part of it that you shared and that disappeared a few minutes, sometimes hours, maximum 24 hours. I think it was the time to have a photo. That's what I was using it for, like to share photos that would not set in time and that would disappear. So it would like to share daily stuff. In some way, like the status that you had on Facebook that we used to share, like every day, I'm eating pasta, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It was the same with the photos. And that's what I was using it for. And that's what I was looking on the feed back then, was the photos shared by my network and the people that I know. And then I know it evolved, as we were saying, more like for Gen Z into a messaging app. Like where people discuss and talk, but back then in my time, it was just like more like to share your own stuff. Like the social part of the social platforms was more like me sharing my own stuff and watching what others were sharing also.
Yes, exactly. So it's a little bit of, so here you can see already a theme of how this is an app that was extremely popular 10 years ago and it has this novelty, right? So like I remember back then, the idea that messages could disappear time-based was unheard. Before it was, you created a message and it was there forever. So then there were always regrets of sending the wrong thing to the wrong person and no way to rolling back, etc. So it somehow like it struck a chord But then it feels that others adopted and adapted the unique feature of Snapchat, and then somehow it disappeared. And then also that's why I want to share first here the screen, so where we can see also the current so price of so Snapchat, Snap Inc. So stock, and we can see how they are one of the major. They benefited significantly from the pandemic, but now pretty much they are doing not that well. And not only that, but also if you look at their IPO price, if you were one of the IPO investors, you have lost pretty much half of your money, right? So it doesn't seem that they are like performing that well. The audience might be saying, hey, but this is something where this is like everyone, all internet companies are doing like that. But actually not. So like here's another nice chart from the Financial Times where they compare how Meta, the company behind Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and so on, are performing, and what was the case of Snap. And Snap, they were doing extremely well during the pandemic, and then it seemed they crashed, whereas Meta, they were suffering something similar, but then they were able to outperform. And maybe this could be AI related, right? So maybe we can say, hey, Meta now, AI company, we associate clearly, Snap, social media, so that's not the case. Chris, from your perception, will you see like that? Will you think that people, the market, see Meta is more like AI related, Snap is like a niche for social media, and that's why they're performing differently?
Honestly speaking, I think it's very hard to compare this way. But I want to come back to the share price that you showed on Snap, and obviously 21 to 23 was a crazy time for a lot of stocks where there are so many factors that sort of influences the share price, and most of all is just emotionality of people buying stocks, I would say. But it actually reminds me, at the time with Lufthansa, we were building two indices. One we called the go-to index, go out index, and then the other one was the stay home index. And essentially what we tried to track was how confident are people in going out while we were in pandemic. So basically everyone was scared of the virus, or there were like bans of actually going out and curfews and so forth. And also how people would stay inside. And we tracked that because we wanted to understand the confidence and also maybe the security and safety in certain countries as almost like an early signal. And so for the go out index, we used apps such as Google Maps, etc., that we tracked, and we tracked downloads actually of apps. And then we had the Stay In Index, which comprised of a basket of apps such as Netflix. I would also actually, this is the reason why I thought of it, because I think Snap also falls into that bucket, right? Like you're bored, you're at home, you kind of want to like interact with your friends that you can't see, and so that's why you sort of like start messaging or using Snap or any of the other social media apps. That's sort of what came to mind. The reason I bring it up also is because I believe, to your second point on like why has it now plummeted, I actually wanted to take two steps back. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, I think a lot of these features that we see in Snap has also been copied by other people. Like, I mean, even on WhatsApp nowadays, you can send a photo that actually disappears. I also think that one of the more disruptive trend are the short videos. First and foremost introduced by Douyin or TikTok at the time. So these very addictive 1 minute videos that you could scroll forever and ever. So essentially, I would say overall, there's this huge trend of shorter attention spans, shorter content, but really precise and concise that is catered to consumers.
Yes, absolutely. I would say, so based on what you're saying, so Chris, is that on one side, companies have adopted features that are easier to replicate. And not only that, but also, as you were mentioning with your index, right? Like people now, they want to go out, they want to leave things and not be on their phones. And our listeners might be thinking, hey, like Snap, I might have heard of it, but I don't know anyone who's really using it. They might be like small number. Well, actually, no. Like according to their own reports, they have 850 million monthly active users globally. So almost like 1 billion people is using Snapchat every month. So sure, this pales in comparison with Facebook, Instagram, and so on, but still a relevant number. On our area of interest, which is AI, They were also a trailblazer. They were the first platform, the first social media platform that integrate ChatGPT. They had something called My AI. And Tony, you were mentioning so earlier during our recording that you had already seen this chatbot and so on. Did you play with it? Did you do something with that? What was your impression of the chatbot that Snap integrated?
Well, yeah, it was over a year ago now, and it was, yeah, it was basically from what we see now. It was a lighter version of ChatGPT, and a very simplified. But as we were talking, and we're going to discuss, you could feel a bit like Grok that came. That it was more like an unfiltered version of a chat GPT that you could ask like, basically about anything, and it would give you a reply with no guidelines, with no limitations. And to me, yeah, that was the feeling that I had when I tried it when it came out. I haven't used it since, so I imagine it evolved a lot of it over time. But yeah, at first it was like a light version of ChatGPT, a funnier version with no constraints and much more unfiltered.
You're right. And then for anyone who is not familiar, Grok is the AI from X/Twitter, Elon Musk. And just like Elon Musk talks about free speech and no limits and so on, it was a little bit like the case that you were saying, right? Because I was mentioning also that I remember seeing this viral tweet on how it was so easy to ask this bot, this chat from Snap, advice for things that otherwise ChatGPT will block it immediately. Will say it cannot give you advice or this is wrong. So let's say like topics that are even so not suited for minors, because in the end Snapchat is like an app that's supposed to be for like younger adults or like minors, etc. But nevertheless, like Ivan Spiegel, so the CEO and founder of Snap, is called saying that these days, there are more than 2 million chats per day that are sent through Snap that are related to this AI feature. So in total, they have sent more than 20 billion messages through this so-called so My AI. And so here we're seeing like a theme of, on one side, early adoption, but also how this can have negative consequences when you're too fast, when you try to be like a trailblazer. And so Chris, always you're here like advising large organizations, startups, and so on. And there is always a risk, right? Like maybe like a corporate is afraid of, hey, maybe we'll get it wrong, maybe we'll have like a PR disaster, etc. Are there any like type of frameworks or guardrails, or how can you have like this safe innovation of doing interesting things, but at the same time maybe not creating a whole scandal, so with your shareholders and also maybe with the press?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a framework ad hoc, but a couple of thoughts on this. I think again, the target audience you're targeting with Snap is normally much more open-minded, and also I would say it's fair to say that younger people have no or less problems of like adopting something new and trying it out. And I think this is what we're seeing with the 20 billion messages sent, and it seems to be like a very fun kind of feature, and people don't think much about it. I think that's basically what we see, and I think in it also makes sense. I mean, Snap is placed in such a competitive field, as you also had alluded to, and we have also seen that, you know, Meta is also trying to constantly reinvent itself, from like naming itself from Facebook to Meta, right? And I think that's also a very like obvious evolution to also integrate AI into the product and also into the company, I would say. So from that angle, I don't think this is like, you know, shareholder value destructive. I think the question is like, who's going to be the winner of the race at the end of the day. Yeah, and I mean, TikTok, I would say, has quite a bit of capital and they're investing quite a bit of money also in, you know, using all the different AI features and really weaving that into the customer experience.
Absolutely. And now that you mentioned so TikTok or social networks, something where Snapchat is unique is they have a service called Snapchat Plus. For anyone who is not aware of it, is pretty much a subscription service. So this subscription service enables users to get access on one side to this enhanced chat experience with AI, but also it offers other features such as a menu translation, identifying plans, identifying parking signs. So it has a video image recognition capabilities. And it has already more than 9 million subscribers. So here we see how we have a company that's able, it seems successfully, to monetize AI services Whereas others, so you're mentioning Chris TikTok, but of course it's Instagram and all the meta apps plus all the others around, they're offering this for free. And here, Tony, so you advise all type of startups and organizations digitally. Do you have any type of advice on when should a company decide to offer this AI functionality, these new AI features as a paid service versus as core part of the product? Because of course, on one side, you want to be innovative, you want to have the latest and greatest, but also these are very expensive services to run.
That's true. And a quick note about the My AI launch, because I read something about it from last year. So, as you said, first it was only to plus subscribers of Snapchat, which the service was launched about the same time as My AI. Then when OpenAI opened it to everyone, access to ChatGPT, they actually made it available to everyone on Snapchat. The My AI part, just the chatbot. And with what's interesting is that but last year, actually people started to subscribe to Snapchat Plus to remove the AI, because that was the only way you could remove the chatbot, was if you had a paid subscription. And many people started to pay because they didn't like the chatbot and wanted to remove it, which is a funny. The side of thing is that increasing the subscriptions was a way for people to remove the AI. But which brings to what you were saying is that should we have it paid or free? Until now, having it free obviously is a mass effect, because it helps you grow your subscription base or your user base faster, because you give free access to stuff. The thing is, and companies like Snap, and I think we'll talk about it, is that if you rely on a third-party provider like ChatGPT, as they did first, and now Gemini, when they will increase the prices, and we know that OpenAI or Google will have to increase their prices to give access to those services because they're so expensive for them to run, then you become over-reliant on a third-party provider. And that can become an issue, even for paid subscribers that you might have, because how are you going to make the service stay in place if you now have a 200 or 300 or even 1,000% increase in pricing to your service? So that's always the limits of it for AI services, is how much you rely and how much your service or your product relies on a third-party provider of AI stuff to run. If they were using Meta open source free services, that would be different, because they would build their own model or whatever. But now they're relying on a commercial third party, and to me, that's what might be an issue here.
Yes, you're bringing a very interesting point on so rely on a third party, but it seems that that has been from the get-go Snap's strategy. So whereas other large internet companies, they have decided, hey, we want to own all our infrastructure, they build data centers, they have like the full tech stack. Snap has been relying since very, very early days from third parties that are built on the cloud. So not many people I know, but pretty much all the Snap services that are using Google Cloud. As a result, they spend significant amount of resources on just maintaining this. So alone this year, it's reported they spent 1.5 billion on IT services from Google Cloud. And well, it feels the natural that they say, okay, if we are outsourcing all our AI, our general infrastructure, not just AI, but everything to run our applications, then let us do this.
Let me add to this whole Snap conversation, because I think, Tony, you're bringing up a really good point around monetization. I actually was very curious on understanding sort of like what's really their vision, like where do they want to head and what kind of company are they? Because they started out as being the social messaging app kind of play, now trying to evolve more into AI, maybe also VR. And I think this is really important when it comes to monetization, and also the kind of monetization strategy you want to like strike. Is it you're trying to monetize on the product and service directly? Is it through third party, through advertising? Is it through affiliates and partnerships? Like, I think that's really important. I don't know, Rod, do you have any more information on that? What kind of company they want to become?
Well, so there was this very interesting long article on the Financial Times recently about Snap. Actually, I wanted also to share this other chart from them, and also like to tie into what we were saying, Chris, on innovation and the type of company that they're trying to become. That on one side, if we look at what you're saying. They're trying to be innovative. We see also not only on AI-related initiatives, but also they have these glasses, very advanced, that are augmented reality, and they are cooler than the Meta ones, and they're also somehow more useful than the Meta ones. But at the same time, we have to put in the perspective that this is a company that, since going public, and before when they were a private company, that was also not the case, but since going public, they only have had one quarter where they have a profit. So this is a company that pretty much has been losing money for all this existence. And all these new initiatives, AI, VR, AR, whatever it is, they're also very, very expensive. The article, and going back to your point, which type of company they want to become, they were arguing that this is a founder-led company. Evan Spiegel, the founder from Snap, is still the one who is managing the business. And it seems that he has some sort of mission of trying to prove the world that he made the right choice, because before going public, he had an acquisition offer from Meta and he rejected it. But now, as we were looking at our stock chart, right? So likely had he sold and stayed and kept his Meta stock, maybe now he will be significantly wealthier and in a much more comfortable financial position. Not that he's doing badly, but he will be in a better position than it is the case with Snap. And Chris, so you're not a Snap user, but you're aware of all these initiatives. How is it? It seems that at least they might not have captured you as a user, but they somehow have good PR.
Honestly speaking, listening to you, I'm like, they're really just praying and praying. It seems like just adopting the next generation of technologies. I mean, again, I think they will run into the same problems like Google Lens, or maybe now with the Vision Pro. I mean, that's very, very niche and very premium, very early stage. We'll have to see what's going to come out of this. But I think what they're really trying to do is really getting in front of the bandwagon rather than missing out. And maybe over the last couple of years, I didn't track Snap. There wasn't big news on them, on having invested into this or that. So I can imagine that they're really trying to dominate a new space and create a new category. Actually, when you were talking, I was like, well, maybe they should go and work and have some kind of partnership with Meta now, since Meta tries to be all virtual anyways. And it seems like some of these visionaries are trying to bring social into that virtual world more and more. I still want to say that from a customer experience, it's still hard for me to envision how this is going to look like in terms of actual practice, how we're going to be all social. I think, during COVID, there was an opening where, we had like these one-day startups that tried to do virtual conferences, and then you had little avatars running around and whatnot. I forget the name of this very famous startup that actually wasn't unicorn, but then I think when the pandemic ended, it also completely crashed, and they sold it for $20 or something. So essentially, my takeaway from all that experience is it's just going to be really difficult to change people's behaviors. And there's so much value in also doing business, I would say, in face-to-face meetings. And it's very hard. And still, I don't think the technology is there yet to really get all the sensations across in a virtual space. There was one side of the thoughts I had. I want to share another one, which is, you were talking about this My AI app feature. And I was just thinking, what if, Character.ai and Snap would form a partnership? They would start putting these avatars, these Einsteins, or whoever you want to chat to onto a Snap, and you'd start chatting with them. Also talking about, kids and safety and all of that. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Any reactions from you?
Yeah, that's an interesting use case, and just about what you were saying about the vision and the AR and AI thing. There's a big, and you were talking about monetization also. I think there's also a big difference between, for example, Snap and Meta, is that Mark Zuckerberg has a vision for AR, has a vision for AI, and he's investing a lot, but he's building his own stuff, and he's building what serves his business. Like, for instance, if you look at what's in WhatsApp AI nowadays, Meta AI, every use case that they have, where the difference is to me, and it seems to me that Snap is just, you were saying that they're the first runners, etc., but they're just going on the wagon of others like Meta as Ray-Ban, the glasses, Snap has it. But the thing is that Meta is making AI and AR or VR into their core business, whereas Snap is just trying to be the first comer on something like, okay, the Snapchat glasses, but is that their core business? Are they changing their business? It looks like more an opportunistic approach that Evan Spiegel has, whereas Meta has a real vision. So I think there's also there the big difference. Sometimes it's good to pick opportunities and to like test lots of stuff and see what sticks. But yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. And for what you were saying, to me, the idea that I had of Snap and using AI is basically what you were saying, is that it's a fun way to use AI, and if it's tailored for Gen Z or younger people, yeah, you should have the fun side of it. So chats with Einstein, I think younger people won't care about Einstein, but if you put Taylor Swift or other influencers like that, they will probably enjoy it. And to me, yeah, that's in terms of product, that's naturally where I would go if I was Snap, which is to go to, okay, AI can do a lot of stuff. My target audience is this one. What's their use case? And then focus my efforts on that kind of use case, which is the fun side, the personalized side.
Maybe to add on that, I think that actually is quite an interesting monetization channel potentially. No, I mean, you basically build an influencer platform next to the core product Snap messaging, and you basically give a royalty or whatever to Taylor Swift for being able to impersonate her on AI, and then, well, basically you can also, well, not maybe Taylor Swift, I think she's very sensitive towards that, but
Yeah.
maybe other influencers might actually find that quite interesting.
Yes, there are so many like smaller influencers, but still, so that are known and followed by millions, and they might be interested in doing some sort of like partnership, so revenue deal with company like Snap, in offering their personalities such that their fans can chat with their virtual versions of the influencers. And a couple of things here. So, Chris, you were mentioning about this company, so who was like this pandemic darling for online conferences. The name was Hopin, and it was a
Oh,
company that was,
yes.
yes, it was at its peak was valued at 7.7 billion. But then, after the pandemic in 2023, it was sold for less than 50 million. It is estimated around 15. Yes, so from 7.7 billion all the way to 15 million.
Wow.
So here we can see how one day you can be the darling and you can be really like the hot topic, and then the next day, well, you are not relevant anymore. And I guess also that's something that Snap has been fighting throughout its existence on how not to be like a one trick pony and so on. And not only they're doing these chats that we're discussing now, maybe they could integrate influencers, some sort of personality and so on, but also they're developing a B2B business where they're offering advertisement tools for small businesses to advertise on Snap that are powered by AI. Tony, have you read anything about this? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen just demos of it, and actually it raised also a lot of issues in terms of privacy for the end users. But yeah, here's a case of using AI that it makes sense and that can be monetized, which is using all the data that I get, and I imagine also from the chatbot, people asking questions about cosmetics, about food, whatever, is to use that and to power ad revenue. But I've read also stuff that they were using AI also to create personalized ads with the face of the users in the suggestions in terms of ads, which obviously raises a lot of questions in terms of privacy. So that I think the strategy is interesting because you have access to a lot of data through AI, and now you can adapt segments, do personalized stuff for smaller companies that normally don't have access to those kinds of tools, but also always with that limits of in terms of concerns, because you're dealing with consumer apps, the limits in terms of privacy and how much you expose people, even though they expose themselves. But it's one thing to share everything that you have and to have someone show you what you've shared, because emotionally, etc., it makes a lot of difference. So they have to be careful there, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And although there are always these limitations, constraints, maybe like concerns that this might be maybe something that might be detrimental to user experience or user privacy, still Snap AI has already generating significant revenue. So according to Street Research, its revenues has already reached 234 million in 2024 just from this AI-related unit. And I want to ask you, Chris, you always have your eyes and ears across so many businesses, startups, and organizations. which cases are you seeing related to, not let's say that this user facing, let us have like a nice Dorito with our face and make it funny for the users, but more this type of back office internal services that are being powered by AI?
Next question. What? What did you ask? I didn't get it.
I'm asking, so which type of, so more on the back office, on the internal use cases, AI services are you seeing that companies are implementing, startups, not just having like this funny thing, chat with your influencer, but things that are supporting processes internally?
I think what Tony just mentioned at the beginning is quite interesting. No, I mean, sentiment analysis, kind of like getting data analytics with AI. I think these are the things that are most seen in internal companies or internally used by companies, next to like customer support, which I think is a very obvious one. And we spoke about also obviously efficiency gains in marketing, etc. I think that makes a lot of sense. But maybe coming back to one of the points earlier mentioned by Tony around, Meta really building on their core business and then really like investing heavily into core like capabilities that would enhance the core, whilst Snap really just spraying and praying and hoping, and perhaps also just maybe this spectacle or going into that spectacle field is a bit of a question mark, or at least not really visible from the outside why they do it. I think a really good point raised is really building on top of your core assets, right? And your core asset being the one thing that really can help to differentiate and help to defend, especially in a red ocean such as social media. And I think for Snap also, it seems like it's their user base, right? They had, if it's true, they have 850 million people engaging, writing tons of messages. And so I believe if you want to think about like evolving the business, some of these ideas that we just floated, like the influencer platform to like increase engagement on frequency and user time on the app could be one. I think the second idea that was raised was around marketing, or like better marketing or more tailored marketing. So it's almost like a platform where you help businesses connect better with their end consumers, like the beauty brand that wants to like get to a new category of customers. I think those are really actually quite interesting business models, I have to say, next to like just standard maybe advertising business that they seem to be running.
And that was my next question. That was, let's imagine that Evan Spiegel gives up and say, hey, I need a new CEO. And for example, they say, Tony, so I want you as my CEO. What will be like the things that you will start doing, things that you'll be interested in understanding about the business, or initiatives that you would like to pursue? If you're the Snap Inc. CEO, what will be in your first year?
Well, that's a tough question from a public company, because there's obviously a lot of things involved. But coming from product side, I think the first thing would be to analyze what works and what doesn't, and cut everything that doesn't make sense, and have a vision, which is something that maybe, and I imagine Spiegel has a vision, but it's not clear to us what we're saying, like AR, AI, where is it going? Is it a messaging app? Do they want to do other stuff? If the messaging is the core business and it's still what drives people to use it, then I would focus, like Chris said, focus more on it, use all the data from the conversations and all the messages to improve the ad strategy and the marketing strategy to then sell ads to companies that say, okay, here's the most tailored ads that you can have. And also, obviously, with that, higher conversion rates. So you should advertise on our platform because we do hyper tailored messages. And what Chris was saying, maybe using AI, because a lot of the use on AI, obviously, for a company like Snap is related to image, would be like to maybe then start using it more like for videos and invest a bit more in that. Trying still to find a differentiator from TikTok, which obviously has a big portion of the market on that area. But yeah, it would be like maybe go back to the core business of the company and the core value of the company and try to expand from that, saying, okay, this is what people use it for. It's for messaging. Then we have AI, we have all the data. Ads is one way. Maybe we should try to develop something more related to video, image, and use AI in that way. And as we were saying, like influencers, videos, fun videos with avatars, etc., would be one way to go, which is something that they do, but it's not something that we hear a lot about. We hear more about the spectacles and the AR part. So that would be my first go-to.
So if I understood you correctly, Tony, you were saying basically focus on the core competences and let's say like the core product of Snapchat, Snap, which is these ephemeral messages and maybe like sending funny things, maybe powered by AI, and then pay less attention to this sort of idea of glasses, augmented reality, some physical devices and so on, which are less clear how they integrate into this ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. And because you have the competition, again, because Snap relies on others for their business, then Meta, as we saw, has much more resources and much more value today. And we know they're investing in it too a lot. So does that make sense for me as a Snap CEO to invest in something where I'm not I don't have the resources to develop my own. I have to rely on others, and it's not my core business. And there's a competitor out there that's that has much more resources and money to do the same thing. That would be something that I wouldn't go into because again, it's not my core focus.
And Chris, do you have any ideas how, for example, they can stay relevant against TikTok, against others? Will you also focus on core assets, the core mission of the company, or you'll make other different strategies or different decisions and choices?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the same question while listening to Tony's answer. And the question I really had in my mind was, if we were the three of us create a social media or social app company today in the era of AI, how would we build it differently now that we have that capability? Like, how would the customer journey or the customer experience actually look like? And how could we also differentiate? And honestly speaking, I actually come back to it's going to be super hard, just simply because I think really the core to any social company or B2C company is the user base. And I also think the user base, not only the user base, also the acquisition of that user base and how much that's going to cost you. And we can see that, and it's living proof of TikTok and all some of these Chinese, apps such as Temu that flooded the market with like advertising everywhere. And I don't want to know how much marketing cost they actually burn through every month. So that actually leads me to believe that the core and really the differentiator is can you protect that user base and can you grow it? And the growing part is going to be the challenging part, because I just ask ourselves, how many chat applications do you have? And it's crazy. Like for me, it's like at least 6 or 7 channels, from like the WeChat, WhatsApps to, I don't know, very specific ones such as Signal for Germany because of security issues. Then you use Slack and Teams and whatnot. And I feel like it's already saturated. So I think my second thought on that is you probably want to think about what else or how else do consumer behavior evolve? Like, what do we all want? How do we want to connect in the future? Maybe it's less. Maybe we go back to small dinner kind of arrangements. I think the latest thing I've seen was some kind of social, I think also dating app called Time Left. So they're, for example, trying to get people to actually meet face to face, real time, and like in a more social setting. So I think that's the kind of thinking I would probably prompt also in the conversation here if we were to build a new social app from scratch.
Something that was very interesting now you were saying is how the boundaries between messaging apps so here Signal or also Slack or also WhatsApp and so on pretty much disappeared with regards to social networks. So before we'll say, hey, there is WhatsApp and there is, let's say, like Facebook. They're completely different things, but now it seems they are in the end they serve the same purpose. So I was wondering here, do you think there's still space for a social network in 2024? Tony, will you come with something like this in 2024, or you think this is already like a closed chapter of internet history and there is no more chance?
Yeah, but well, to me, that's interesting. And for what Chris was saying, again, you have these huge actors, you have the Chinese, you have Meta, you have big corporations spending tons of in ads to have like generic messaging apps, but you were talking about Be Real, which is the temporary image French company that was sold for $500 million for Voodoo, a gaming company. And that's a good example, is that it is a social app because it has a huge user base, but they focused on one specific aspect of messaging and one particular value, which was the temporary images. And that's what made them different. And that's what brought people to them, because again, they had a unique value proposition compared to the messengers, to the WhatsApps, etc. And to me, that's, if you want to go into social today, that's where you need to position yourself, is have like a unique differentiator approach to messaging or social interactions. As you were saying, Chris, time left is a good way. It's the counterpart. Like, okay, we're going to do an app to bring people into the real world. There's a French one that was launched last year called AMI, AMI, that actually is building different apps that all connect together, but each app is a social app, but focused on, it can be like status sharing, photo sharing, and each app has a very specific use case. And their idea is that they all connect together, but you can attract different user bases focused on one specific use case. And to me, that would be the approach, because the generic messaging and social thing is already taken by everyone. It's like, okay, find your own niche and build your blue pond in the red ocean that is social media in general.
By the way, do you guys still remember Clubhouse? This voice
another one, yes.
like group call COVID thing. Like, what happened to them actually?
They're still around, I think. So they're still live because they raised so much money that it somehow exists. But I don't know anyone who's using it. Are you still using it? Do you use it, Tony?
No, not at all. Not anymore. And I only tried it back then when it came out. But again, not using it. But that's a good example of that was a unique approach that they had also for social interaction. But that's one way to show that there is still traction and interest in those social apps, but you need a specific use case or specific approach to attract people.
And before we wrap up, so Tony, you're so immersed in the whole French startup AI ecosystem. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more of the things that you're seeing, trends, interesting startups, topics. We are completely disconnected from it. So these no many names that you're mentioning, these networks, etc., they're completely new to me, at least.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I work a lot also on Product Hunt, and I advise companies on launching. And what I see a lot is obviously the AI thing. But what I've seen, and particularly in the B2B area, is that the powered by AI or we do AI thing that was trending for most of 2023 is slowly fading away because AI is almost everywhere nowadays. And we now see companies try to have a different approach, saying, okay, this is not AI powered. This is the outcome that we have. And then AI is the tool to achieve it. And in terms of interactions, as Chris was saying, video is taking a lot of space. I mean, you see Agen, you see Synthesia, you see every company going into video nowadays, and particularly in the sales world, which is somewhere I work a lot. Video is becoming a big part. AI agents, growing business also. And we see Microsoft is actually launching the multi-agent area thing recently. But AI agents and video, particularly in sales, is a growing business. And as we see, there's a lot of valuation, a lot of investment by VCs into sales, because nowadays finding clients is becoming difficult. And that's a lot of investment, and a lot of new stuff that I see coming out is video and AI engines related to sales, or actually to B2B stuff or customer support, as we were saying, and people impersonating sellers is something that I see growing a lot.
Do you have any names where you say, hey,
Yes,
these services are super interesting, or,
well, one I've seen a lot is the Agen, the video company, because they're building lots of avatars. You can also, I don't know if you guys remember, there was something in the Shark Tank a while back, which was a guy that was made fun of. He created something where there's a video of him during a meeting at school, and actually was sleeping, but it was his avatar, and people laughed at him, saying people won't buy that. And nowadays you see that companies like that create really realistic avatars that can interact. Like, you might not even know that's me actually that's talking here, because I could have trained very easily, recorded a 1 minute or 2 minute videos of myself and just prompting a text, and I would be speaking to you. Or imagine using an AI agent that's getting what you're saying in real time and responding based on what they know about me. And Agen or Synthesia are companies that are investing a lot in video nowadays.
Yes, Tisha, I'm familiar with, and they're based actually here in London, but I think they're also like very strong in the US. And anything specifically from France? Is there like any French startup you like to shout out and say, hey, they're doing exciting things?
Well, again, Be Real was a very cool one, and I really enjoyed it. The one I was talking, and to relate to this topic, is called Amy. They have a very specific approach, which is building blocks and different software, each one for one specific use case of social interactions that all connect together. And I think that's very interesting to see how they approach that in the coming months, to see if that approach makes sense and is successful, or if having an all-in-one tool, as we usually see in social media, is still the best approach. So that's one that's been growing a lot lately, and that's something I'm interested to see growing. Yeah.
So it is spelled A-M-Y, or how do you spell it?
A-M-I, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, everyone, so we should go and create an account, we should play with it and see what we think. But I would say we have already covered today so much ground, right? So we have seen, if we can like do like a recap of what we've spoken. We have said how like Snap, they already for some time in the market, now more than 10 years. We realized how we all install it, but not all of us use it. We also seen how they had this core uniqueness. They had this really great differentiator compared to what was in the market 10 years ago. But now it has pretty much disappeared, and what they offer, also others are offering it. We saw that they're doing this chatbot, they're doing paid services for AI, there's a subscription-based service for AI. Also, they're offering advertisement tools with AI. In general, they're trying to do like kind of innovation, and this is only on the AI space. We also discovered and spoke about augmented reality and all the other things that they're doing. And yet we're seeing how it's a company that is not doing that well financially, and also likely from a user perspective where they have this core audience, almost 1 billion. But it's not that we hear every day people are installing Snapchat on their devices, right? And we have here some thoughts on if we were the CEO of Snapchat, what is it that we'll be doing? And then, of course, I hear Tony giving us some insights on the French ecosystem and video, AI, great combination. Also, I'm a big fan of video, Tony. I also think that video is the future. But nevertheless, Tony, so where can people find you? So you were mentioning you had also a blog. You're also doing a lot of write-ups and so on. Where can people find all this information?
Well, the easiest way is to go on LinkedIn, because that's where I'm the most present. So Dos Santos Tony, which is the name, and also the newsletter, which is called the Product Courier, that we have on Substack, where basically every week we share one use case, actionable use case of AI for product and marketing teams.
Well, then I would say with this, we can wrap everything up. And as usual, remember to like, subscribe, your comments, feedback, and don't forget to tune in every Monday for a new episode of The Chris Rodmack Show. Until next time.